They say a smile can hide 1,000 sorrows. What if it could hide the truth of an entire lifetime? Imagine a man whose lips curved upward even as the air around him grew still, whose eyes glimmered with something no one could name. Those who saw him in his final hours spoke not of fear, but of an eerie serenity. As if he knew something the rest of us could not bear to understand, the story comes to us in fragments. A weathered diary found in a chest beneath rotting floorboards. A portrait where the paint refuses to fade from the corners of his mouth. The testimony of neighbors who swore they heard faint laughter drifting through the night, long after the man had gone. It is the kind of tale you might dismiss until you notice how every account matches, down to the smallest detail. No one can agree on his real name. Some called him Mr. Marlowe, others claimed he was an actor from a forgotten theater troupe. A few insisted he had no name at all, only a presence, the way a shadow has no substance yet can blot out the sun. His life was ordinary enough, at least from the outside. A small house at the edge of town, a garden where the ivy seemed to grow faster than anywhere else, and a habit of taking long walks at dusk, greeting every passerby with that same warm, unshakable grin. But behind that expression, behind the teeth and the polite nod, there was a weight no one could quite see. People noticed the odd things only in hindsight. The way his laughter never seemed to follow the rhythm of the joke, how his eyes would sometimes flick toward a space where nothing stood, how his shadow appeared longer than it should in the fading light. And then came the night when the smile became permanent. Not carved, not forced, but sealed, as if his very face had chosen to remember joy while the rest of him slipped away. Witnesses said they found him seated upright, hands folded, the air scented faintly of some unplaceable perfume, a soundless chuckle still trembling in his chest. There was no sign of disturbance, no trace of intrusion, only that unfaltering expression, and the sense that the room itself was holding its breath. What could make a man leave the world with a smile no storm could erase? Was it peace, or was it the quiet victory of something that had been watching him all along? To understand, we must go back, not just to the final days, but to the very roots of the grin that defied the ending. For a smile can be many things, a kindness, a mask, or the last secret a soul takes with it. Born in a traveling carnival, he learned early the difference between faces, the painted ones and the genuine. His own was a study in contradictions, quick to light up, yet bearing the weight of something never spoken. He was a conjurer's son, a legacy of shadows and sleight of hand. By the time he could walk, he was already a master of misdirection, drawing attention away from the secrets nestled in his father's worn top hat. But as he grew older, the boy's grin took on a life of its own, splitting his face and echoing with laughter that seemed to come from elsewhere. People stopped looking for the source and started fearing the smile itself. They whispered of a darkness in his eyes, a hunger just beneath the surface, and stayed far from the boy's infectious mirth. Years passed and the laughter didn't fade, so he learned to live with the distance, finding solace only in the company of his father, who saw in his son's mirth a reflection of the spotlight, a promise of immortality. When the old conjurer died, the boy took his place under the big top, perpetuating the legacy of smoke and mirrors. Yet as the applause grew louder, he felt the smile tugging at the corners of his mouth, stretching it wider and wider until it hurt. The audience roared, but he longed for silence, for just one person to look beyond the painted grin and into the cage of his heart. One day a woman did. She was an artist, captivated by the melancholic gleam in his eye, the hint of torment in his smile. She saw not an act, but a soul bearing its rawest truths. Their love bloomed amidst the gaslights and sawdust, a fragile haven from the judging eyes of the crowd. She understood the language of his silences, the unspoken fears that haunted his waking hours. In her gaze, he found a mirror, not of perfection, but of honesty, a shared acknowledgement of the darkness that both of them carried. Together they created, pouring their hearts into each canvas, each stroke a testament to their bond. Then she smiled, not the tight, polite curve of lips he'd perfected over the years, but a full-throated, unrestrained expression of pure joy. When he looked into her eyes, he saw not just love, but the reflection of his own smile, accepted, embraced, and set free. He continued to perform, but now he was no longer alone. Each night after the show, they would steal away to their haven, two souls finding refuge in each other's arms, two smiles becoming one. But fate, like a cruel puppeteer, had other plans. As suddenly as she'd come into his life, she was gone, leaving him amidst a whirlwind of grief and a void where laughter had echoed. The smile, once a symbol of their shared joy, became a curse, a constant, painful reminder of what he'd lost. He retreated into himself, the applause growing fainter as his light dimmed, and when the curtain fell for the final time, it wasn't the theater that mourned, but the echo of a love that refused to be silenced. This story is about a man with an eternally fixed smile. But long before that final evening, the smile had already begun its quiet work. Those who remembered him from years past claimed that it was not always there, not with the same constancy, not with the same unsettling stillness. They spoke of a time when his face was as changeable as the weather, when joy would come and go naturally, unforced, and yet something happened in the year the river froze early. That winter, the town seemed trapped beneath a dome of silence. The frost etched delicate patterns on every window pane, as though the sky itself had been pressing its cold breath against the glass. Marlowe, if that was truly his name, was often seen standing by the riverbank, his gaze fixed not on the ice but on his own reflection. It was said he once spent an entire afternoon there unmoving while the faintest curl of a smile formed on his lips and refused to leave. Neighbors grew used to seeing him like this. In the market, at the apothecary, on the narrow cobblestone lanes. He greeted all with the same measured warmth, as though every meeting was a private joke between him and the universe. The local dressmaker recalled the peculiar way he spoke, always phrasing his thanks as if he were speaking to someone else, standing just over your shoulder. "It's for them," he once said cryptically, placing coins on the counter. She never asked who them was. It was during this time that small oddities began to accumulate. A cat was seen crouched before his doorway, ears flattened, refusing to cross the threshold. Candles in his home burned longer than they should have, the wax pulling without ever spilling over. And once, during a particularly heavy snow, a passerby swore they saw him through the window laughing. Though the house was entirely dark, no fire lit, no candle casting light, there was also the matter of the box, a small brass-hinged case that never left his possession. No one knew what it contained. He carried it under his arm as though it weighed almost nothing, yet his fingers clutched it tightly, knuckles pale. When asked about it, he would only smile, always smile and say, "It's the reason I remember." What he remembered, he never explained. The town was not without its gossip. Some claimed he had been part of a traveling troupe that vanished during a storm years ago. Others whispered of a pact made under moonlight, the kind of bargain one could neither prove nor undo. Whatever the truth, it was agreed by all that something had changed in him, something that had bound that smile to his very being, as though it no longer belonged to him alone. And so life went on. Seasons turned, harvests came and went, and the man with the eternal smile moved quietly among the rest until one autumn evening, a stranger arrived in town, a woman dressed in faded velvet, her eyes sharp and searching. She found him immediately as if she knew exactly where to look, and though no one could hear their words, those who watched from afar swore that for the briefest moment the smile faltered. It would be the first and last time anyone saw his face change. Ah, yes, this is the one they called the Weaver. She was unlike anyone this town had seen in years. Her velvet dress had once been a deep burgundy, now faded to the color of dried leaves, yet it seemed to drink in the dim light around her. She carried no luggage, no companions, only a thin chain around her neck, from which hung a key so small it could disappear in the crease of her palm. She came to Marlowe in the middle of the square, where the fountain, long since dry, still bore the marks of moss and weather. The air that day was oddly still, as if even the wind leaned in to listen. They spoke without raising their voices, their faces so close it seemed their breath might mingle. The woman's eyes never left his smile never left her, and yet those watching from a safe distance swore they saw the faintest tremor ripple through his jaw, as though the very muscles that had guarded his secret were threatening to betray him. What they did not know, what no one in town could have guessed, was that the key she wore matched the lock on the brass-hinged box he had kept by his side for so many years. When dusk began to fall, she walked with him to his home. It was not the sort of walk done in secrecy. Rather, the townsfolk described it as though the two were tethered by something invisible. His front door, normally locked the instant he crossed the threshold, remained ajar just long enough for her to step inside. From the street, those who lingered could see the dim silhouette of two figures in the parlor, standing across from one another like players waiting for a cue. No one knows what words passed between them. Some swore they heard soft laughter, his, perhaps hers, or both at once. Others claimed it was not laughter at all, but the sound of something being wound tightly, as if preparing to spring. Hours later, the woman emerged alone, the brass box cradled in her arms. Her face betrayed nothing, yet the air around her seemed somehow lighter, as though she had left behind more than she had taken. Inside, Marlowe was seen through the window, seated in his chair, head bowed slightly, that same unshakable smile in place. But something in his stillness had shifted. His hands now rested openly in his lap, as though a burden had been lifted or perhaps handed over. The box was gone, but the smile remained, more serene than ever, almost resigned. In the days that followed, the woman was nowhere to be found. The roads out of town were muddy from recent rain, yet no footprints marked her passing. The innkeeper swore she had never rented a room. The tavern owner insisted she had not crossed their threshold. It was as if she had dissolved into the air the moment her task was complete. And yet, on certain nights, when the streets were empty and the river's surface was still as glass, some claimed they could see her reflection standing beside his in the water, two figures, one smiling, one holding a small brass-hinged box, both watching with a patience that felt older than the town itself. And that, my friends, is the story of how the Weaver came to our humble abode and stole my heart. No, not that one. Not yet. Ah, you want the treasure? Okay, fine. It's in here somewhere. You want to hear about the time she waltzed right up to me in the middle of the market and asked for a dance? Yeah, okay, sure, why not? After all, what's a hero without his muse? The night it happened was not marked by storm or moonlight, but by an unsettling stillness, as if the world had paused just long enough for something unseen to step through. The air carried that peculiar heaviness before a snowfall, though no clouds hung overhead. The lamplighters finished their rounds early, and even the dogs, usually restless in the alleys, lay silent. Marlowe had been seen at dusk, walking the length of the riverbank in his usual unhurried way, yet those who glimpsed him swore that his steps were measured to an unfamiliar rhythm, like a man keeping pace with someone beside him whom they could not see. His hands were empty, no brass box, no walking stick only the faint curve of his mouth and the faraway gleam in his eyes. When he reached his home, the windows glowed faintly, though no candle had been lit. A passerby noticed the door was left ajar and, for reasons they could never explain, felt drawn to peer inside. They saw him in the parlor, seated in the same chair where the woman in velvet had once stood across from him. Before him, on the table, lay an object wrapped in a square of dark cloth. The fabric shimmered faintly, as though light shifted within it. No one knows if he unwrapped it, or if the object itself somehow revealed its form. But the witness swore they heard a sound soft low, almost like the first note of a song remembered from childhood. And with that sound, Marlowe's smile deepened, his eyes closing as if to savor the last drop of a long-awaited memory. Some say he spoke then, though the words were so quiet they dissolved before reaching the listener's ear. Others claim he wasn't speaking at all, that his lips moved in perfect silence, shaping words meant for only one audience. The house seemed to exhale, the curtains stirring though no wind passed through. By morning the house was still, the door remained ajar, just as it had been the night before. Inside, Marlowe sat exactly as he had been seen, hands folded, head slightly inclined. His expression was unchanged, serene, knowing, untouchable. The cloth and the object it concealed were gone. The faint scent of something unplaceable lingered in the air, the same fragrance noted by those who had been present in his final evening. The town records, preserved in the archives, mentioned nothing unusual, only that there was no visible distress, and no clear cause. Yet those who knew him best insisted it was not the end of his life that puzzled them, but the look on his face, as if he had crossed a threshold and found precisely what he had been promised. From that night onward, there were reports, faint, fleeting, of soft laughter drifting across the river after dark. It came without warning, light and unhurried, fading before one could decide if it had been real. And sometimes, in the moon's reflection on the water, a smile would ripple across the surface, vanishing before the ripples reached the shore. They say if you listen very carefully, you can still hear it on nights when the river is still and the moon is heavy in the sky. Some say it's just a legend, a story to scare children into behaving, or a trick of the wind through the trees. Others claim it's true, or at least that something happened that night, though they'll never know what, because if you stop and listen, you won't hear the sound at all. You'll only feel the sudden hush, as if the world itself were holding its breath. And if you look out onto the river, you might swear you see a faint glow in the window of Marlowe's house, as if someone has just lit a candle in the stillness. Or perhaps you'll glimpse the curve of a smile, not quite touching the water, yet undeniably there in the wavering moonlight. Then, as quickly as it began, the sound will drift back into the rustling leaves and the murmur of the current, leaving you on the bank with the echo of laughter just beyond your hearing. A secret the river keeps close to its chest. Many years passed, and the story of the man who smiled until the very end became one of those tales you could not quite keep to yourself. Visitors to the town would hear it in the market, whispered between shopkeepers as they wrapped fresh bread in brown paper. The old fountain where Marlowe met the velvet-clad woman became a place people avoided at dusk, though no one could say why. Even those who dismissed the account admitted that, in certain quiet moments, they found themselves thinking of him. The brass-hinged box was never found, though its description survived in scattered recollections. Some believed it contained a token from a love long lost. Others insisted it was a keepsake from the vanished theater troupe. A smaller, stranger theory claimed it held nothing tangible at all, only a memory, preserved so completely it could be returned, like a loan finally repaid. The truth, if it ever existed in a form that could be spoken, seemed to have gone with him. And yet, the smile remained not on his face, but in the memory of those who had seen it. It became something larger than the man himself, a symbol of quiet defiance, or perhaps of surrender, depending on who told the tale. Was it the sign of someone who had found peace, or the mark of one who had given himself over to a bargain so old and so binding that even the ending was part of its design? Some nights, when the river is still and the air carries that strange weightless chill, you may feel the urge to look over your shoulder. You may catch yourself smiling for no reason, as though someone else's joy had brushed against you in passing. And if you ever hear that faint, unplaceable laughter soft as the turning of a page, remember this: not every smile is born from happiness. Some are the last trace of a story too deep for words, a truth too vast to be spoken aloud. Perhaps that is why the tale endures. It is not about the man himself, or the object he carried, or even the woman who appeared and vanished like a thought. It is about the way a single expression can outlive the person who first wore it, traveling quietly through time, searching for a new face to call home. So when you next see someone smiling in a way that feels almost too perfect, you might wonder, are they smiling for you? Or for something else entirely? If this story has stirred something in you, an unease, a curiosity, stay with it. Let it follow you a while. And if you wish to hear more forgotten histories, more whispers from the margins of time, you know where to find us. Subscribe, share your thoughts, and tell me, do you think a smile like his can truly belong to a man? Or does it belong to the thing that waits behind it? I felt a pang of surprise when I read this story because I'd heard it before. And not just the gist of it. The actual words and cadence of the narration were strangely familiar. I couldn't place it, but it pricked at me like a half-remembered dream. It wasn't until I finished the video and sat back, rubbing at the sudden itch in my throat, that I realized where. It was the same as the style used in another series, altogether different, set in another world, inhabited by other characters. I laughed out loud, not a snort, but a genuine laugh that echoed through the empty room. And then I got up and did something I rarely do. I went back through the whole series again, listening, watching, drinking in the rich tapestry of a world brought to life by the same voice that had narrated this little vignette. I don't usually rewatch things. I prefer to move from one story to the next, each a new experience, a unique flavor. But this time it was different. I had to go back. I needed to hear it again, not just because it was good, though it is, or because I liked the characters, though I do, but because a part of me wanted to understand. What was this shared thread? What was this strange echo that resonated within me? And then, without warning, the answer came. Both stories, though worlds apart in their settings and scenarios, dealt with the same essential themes: the nature of identity, the fragility of selfhood, the way our perceptions shape our realities. I was struck by how similar the concerns were, even if the trappings were different. One story set in the past, one in the future, one focused on a single moment, one an epic journey, but both asking the same questions. I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't listened yet. I highly recommend it, but let's just say that understanding arrived in the most unexpected package. So now when I hear that gentle voice weaving its magic, I know it's not just a different adventure waiting. It's a conversation, a dialogue across time and space. It's a reminder that some truths transcend worlds, some questions echo through eternity, and some answers, well, they come when you least expect them.